Wake up, Toronto. How's it going? Today's segment, we're traveling back to the earlier days of television when reality TV was beginning to make its mark on viewers. Now, people loved the drama. The realness of the characters is debatable, scripted or not, but that's a completely different topic. Fans dug the show. They lived for it. And MTV was the genius behind it. They pretty much launched that type of genre with shows like My Super Sweet 16, 16 and Pregnant, Jersey Shore, and Laguna Beach. Now, Laguna Beach is the real OG of it all. And I kind of revisit that in next week's episode. So keep a lookout for that. But for now, I want to cue nostalgic overload because this particular series we'll be focusing on today, and it's one that ended up in tragedy. You probably know them as separate musicians. We've got Jessica Simpson, who is a solo artist, comparable to the likes of Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, and Mandy Moore back in the 90s. And Nick Lachey was part of 98 Degrees, one of the groups in the era of boy bands like NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, Hanson, and Five. Now, both these singers ended up dating, and a few years later got married, but not before they signed a contract for their own reality show based off of their lives. So it's like they were in agreement of letting cameras as well as the whole world into their home and day-to-day lives, as well as their affairs like shopping, press junkets, and of course, memorable couple banter like, is this tuna fish or chicken? Who remembers that infamous line? The show was called The Newlyweds, with 3 seasons and 41 episodes recorded. It's so strange that it's been nearly, 20 years since it debuted, but the sad part was a lot was going on behind the scenes that we weren't seeing. The relationship between the two were crumbling, like more arguments were being broken out into, and the chemistry was also displaying this shift. They weren't all lovey-dovey and touchy-feely compared to the very first season and first episode. They were more so annoyed at each other, and some of the episodes came across as rehearsed and forceful, causing the overall reality effect, so to speak, to be less authentic. I think the last episode of the entire series was completely pointless because it was like a flashback kind of thing where Nick and Jessica are contemplating if they should move from their current mansion and start anew after all that they've experienced in that house. And so they kind of reminisce, and there's all of these clips that show from time to time, like a flashback really, of all the time that they spend together and what kind of things happened during those 4 years. So I was actually reading an article online where the network actually made this decision to do a clip show for the final episode, as Nick and Jessica were stopping and then shooting again many of the scenes, and they were doing this more frequently. So the producer, I think, said, if we have to keep stopping, there isn't going to be a show. And so the couple looked at each other mutually and agreed and said, stop rolling. It wasn't long though until they split for good. Now, there were a few episodes that kind of took a look at this, but Jessica was launching an edible line of makeup products. So that included like lip gloss and hairspray and mousse and like body lotion and all that jazz. Okay, and I think in one of the episodes, she kind of got a 24-hour virus that they're claiming, but it could have been because of consuming most of that product that was they put on a cupcake to kind of do some promo material with. Now, later on, it's stipulated that one of the reasons that production was shut down was either because a woman got a yeast infection, yikes, while another was that there was a competitor company that had already launched products on the market that were edible, and they were suing for their stolen idea. Now, whatever the reasons really were, one thing is for certain, Jessica Simpson's beauty line was short-lived. Now, I kind of want to share a story because I did buy some of these products back in the day, and I remember the first one was like this body spray or mist. It came in like this small 30 ml clear looking bottle with the spray nozzle at the top, and the scent was like vanilla. Now, when I sprayed it on, it was fine. But then when it dried, and I remember the first testing area I put it on was like below my neck. When I went to take my fingers to touch it, it was sticky to the touch. And it was weird because it felt like honey. Like, you know, if you spill something sugary, and I was like, okay. It smelled delightful. But then I went outside, and this was during summer, and believe it or not, it attracted bees. I was running for life, so scared, but I was being followed by these bees. They were buzzing, and I don't know if they thought I was a flower, and they were trying to get, you know, the sweet pollen. I don't know, but I was freaked, and I never wore it again. And the other two products I bought were like lip glosses. They were like shimmery. One was like a red pinky color, and the other was more of a brownish color, and they both smelled a bit cinnamony. So when I applied it on, okay, it was fine, but then after a couple minutes my lips started to burn, and I didn't like that feeling. It was weird, and so like I threw away the products because I didn't know what the ingredients were in it, and it made me feel uncomfortable. I mean, they had a great marketing team that definitely had buyers interested, and people were going crazy over it, but I don't think they nailed the science behind it, and so there was a lot of things wrong with it, and it was a bummer for sure. I was a mediocre fan of Jessica's, but still I was really looking forward to trying like something that's out of the ordinary, which was edible makeup line. So yeah, since then, I don't think anything of that sort has been released because maybe the FDA didn't approve it. But back to what I was saying, although Jessica abandoned all ship with her makeup line, she actually stayed within that industry, and she was quite the fashionista. So she launched her own clothing line called Jessica Simpson, which to this day is doing exceptionally well, racking in billions of dollars. And Jessica is also remarried since then and has 3 kids. Nick Lachey also remarried, and to someone that he actually had on set with him in one of his songs, What's Left of Me. She played his opposite, and I guess they hit it off and they fell in love. And the song What's Left of Me, it's argumentative, but some say it's based off of his breakup with Jessica Simpson. And just like, you know, Justin Timberlake had his Cry Me a River song based off of his and Britney's relationship. You know, stars do kind of turn to music to let out their emotions, and Taylor Swift is also one of those iconic musicians to watch out for. If you're dating her, you better treat her right and keep her forever, otherwise there'll be a song about you. Believe it or not, but Nick Lachey, just like Jessica Simpson, has 3 kids of his own with his wife. And yeah, like, Jessica hasn't released any new music or an album at that in many, many years, but recently she has released a book called Open Book, where she does talk about the Newlyweds show as well as her substance abuse and sobriety journey. She is planning, and this is exciting, to sing again, which is great news for her fans. Nick also has found success with his fans by regrouping with 98 Degrees and performing at various shows, as well as launching his own shows alongside his wife Vanessa called Love is Blind, where strangers get to know each other through conversations through pods, and then before they get the first reveal of seeing each other face to face, they have to decide if they will marry each other. A few couples have succeeded, proving that the experiment does work. Another show that was launched a few years later is called The Ultimatum, where couples spend time with their partners as well as other couples' partners to see if they match or if they still want to be with the person they first came to the whole experience with. Now, this one gets messy real fast and lots of feelings are hurt, but boy, do viewers really enjoy this one. And the fact that both of these shows are available on Netflix makes it binge-worthy, and customers are absolutely happy about it. So to sum all of this up, we can see that despite being in love, in the limelight, even celebrities do call it quits and do move on with their lives with sometimes other partners. However, we can also see that Jessica was around, 22 years old, and Nick was 28 when they got married. They were young compared to now when couples take their time in selecting a partner and marrying them. Often they are closer to their 30s. And this leads me into story time, and I'm sure you all were anticipating this conversation and how I would tie it into the last. But I'll tell you that it is juicy like a ripe watermelon. I don't know why I use that reference. Anyway, for the most part, wedding season is over. And then you do have the odd fall nuptials, which my husband and I had last November, actually. And I still haven't shared details of those stories. Maybe at our 1 year mark, I'll give you guys the inside scoop. And so during this downtime, which is between December to March, those who are planning on marrying in 2023 and onwards are preparing for their big day. I wanted to take a look at the question, you're married, now what? Based off of that, I've had some very interesting conversations with my relatives and friends about it. To get the ball rolling, let's look at people that I know who are not married. Some are in their late 20s, mid 30s, who either are still studying or got out of a relationship and are not looking to get back into the dating or marriage scene of starting from scratch, while quite a few realized they want to just enjoy life with no plans of marriage, maybe a companion in the future, but they're not set on that choice. And the first thing that came to my mind is, how does your family feel about this? Mind you, they're all from the South Asian background, okay? A few who never want to marry say their parents were persistent before, but now have stopped bugging them as they think they're way too old to have a companion, while others still get pressured for many reasons, either for status or given ultimatums like an arranged marriage. Some even say they can't get married because of caste or religious views, so they're waiting until their parents give in so they can marry the person that they're seeing. Now, I guess it depends on the family values and traditions, because there's quite the division here in the reasoning behind getting married versus staying single. But I do want to focus on the dynamic of parent versus child. So throughout our life, we're guided, or we are expected to do certain things and follow the rules of the house. But also, there does come a time where you become an adult yourself and have to make decisions that will change the rest of your life. Although your parents are still in the picture, they become more so advisors rather than the decision makers, which is you. So unless you're having that talk with them or creating a boundary, you'll have a difficult time breaking away into independence. That's for sure. For example, in my situation, I've dated and have been through several failed relationships. I wasn't thinking during those times as far as marriage, because I didn't think that in my early 20s or all of my 20s, I was ready for that chapter. I mean, I still had so much growth to experience and goals to achieve, and marriage was literally at the bottom of the list. Now let's fast forward all of that. You're married now. Okay. For me, a few months after marriage, and more questions arise, like kids. So first it was, when are you getting married? When are you getting married? When are you getting married? Like somebody's poking you incessantly about that. And now that you are married, when are you going to have kids? And then they try to advise you when you should have kids. Again, I didn't get that so much from our parents and friends, but rather relatives, so people that didn't really know us. Ideally, my husband and I wanted to enjoy being married for a bit before trying to have kids. And generally right now, with the prices of everything rising, inflation is a real thing, guys, and it's a big deal. To have a kid in this moment, for us at least, requires to look at our finances. Now, with all due respect to those people who have families that they started years ago or recently at that, but I think there's a way to phrase your questions when you are speaking to a couple who have no kids, and there's an etiquette behind that, right? So questions like, hey, are you guys planning on having kids sometime in the future? I think is fine. It's the forcing of those suggestions based off of their own personal experience, which isn't fine. It's like they're dismissing your reasons because it's not aligning with their views, and that can be threatening and upsetting. For example, think about it. Couples who don't conceive right away or choose not to delve into that topic might be undergoing fertility issues, or perhaps income-wise, it isn't the right time for them. Of course, parents are there to help, but they aren't there to bail you out all the time. And to be a parent, you have to work as a couple to raise the kid or kids together, and obviously sometimes it gets overwhelming, and at that point it's okay to turn to a parent or another family member to help you out. And this is just speaking on the behalf of my husband and I and our beliefs. We really want to, when we do have kids, to consistently be around them and be there in their development ages and kind of nurture them and have a bond, a close relationship. There's no use if you have kids and then you leave them with other people and you go live your life. That child will grow to remember that my parents were never around, and when they're older, it's much harder to create these relationships that are loving and caring. Plus, health-wise, a woman goes through a lot of changes in her body during pregnancy, unless she has told you or shared that information, but she may be doing some things secretly behind the scenes, prior to conceiving, based off of some family history, so she can deliver a healthy child. I think the weirdest comment I heard is, you two have been together X amount of years. That's a long time. You should have had children before your wedding. Now, I was pretty dumbfounded because I guess maybe that was an attack on my age, maybe not. But also culturally, in my household, kids happen after marriage, not prior. But of course, I wasn't going to sit there and explain my views on that. I kind of just let bygones be bygones and change the topic. When it comes down to it, expanding a family or getting married, vice versa, is a dense and sensitive chat to have with someone, especially if you don't know their comfort level or emotions. And then giving unsolicited advice is another what not to do lesson people need to learn. That also goes for topics that are political and about religion. If it's not a public forum, not everyone chooses to indulge. So these are some interactions basically that I've had. What about you? What have you done or responded with when faced with redundant questions that you've already kind of showcased a stance in? And how did you change that dialogue? So it doesn't need to be solely on weddings and kids. It could be anything. Comment below with your responses. I'm curious. And have a fun Thursday, everyone.